Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 90, Wisdom of the Ages. It's been a little while since the last episode. Sorry about that. Busy, things going on. But in that time, I thought up a new segment, one that I present to Daniel as an experiment this time, and we'll see whether we carry it forward. It's called Wisdom of the Ages, as you might have guessed based on the title. And the gimmick to this segment is that I take common colloquialisms or sayings, little bits of wisdom that you might have heard. You might even consider them cliches. But I take those and I present them to Daniel and ask him to kind of dig in and pass judgment on these phrases. Are they really wise? Is there a nugget of truth embedded in them? Should we live by these phrases, or are they anti-wisdom in a way? Or are they just sometimes useful and sometimes not useful? That's the framing for the segment. I picked three relatively tame sayings this time and have him examine them, and I found the segment to be pretty interesting. We were able to kind of dig in and discuss how these phrases might apply, how they could be interpreted, and whether they're useful. Daniel and I agree most of the time, but we actually had one disagreement that we unpacked that you might find somewhat enlightening. So I hope you will enjoy the episode, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Daniel,
Bennett,
how are you doing today?
it's Father's Day.
It is
so
Father's Day.
Yeah.
So you're a father,
I am a father.
and I've been a father in one episode of our podcast.
So you pretty much get it.
Or
Yeah.
maybe two. I think we did it twice.
Here's what I'll say is like something like sleeping in pretty much vanishes from your life. And I happen to love sleep. And I know you do too. But you just plan your life around you have like an ordered life. So you get your 9 hours, 8.5, whatever that you need. You just like that is a non-negotiable. And so just back up the time you have to wake up. You're more disciplined and orderly than I am. Even though I think I am more disciplined and orderly than the average person, I think I'm maybe like one. What's the term I'm looking for? One, like in the bell curve, the sections,
Standard deviation.
I'm one standard deviation above average. You might be like 3. Like seriously, I think it's probably accurate. And like with a kid, like Cosmo goes down at like 7:00. And I'm not going like these are precious hours of, oh my gosh, I can do what I want now. And so there's something a little like rebellious in me that I stay up a little late or something like that. So
Right.
I'm not getting the sleep that I should. What's new? And getting to sleep in. My point is this: that like getting to sleep in on a Father's Day weekend sounds like such a trivial, like you could do that any weekend, but you can't really. And I try, like 9:00 is where it ends for me. Like that's so sleeping in, and but it's so special. It would have sounded so lame to me that like an earlier version of myself scoffing at the idea you're excited about Father's Day weekend because you get to sleep in. But man, it's a treasure. It's a treasure. And I bought a house.
Nice. Did you actually buy it? Is it done? I mean, you're not done, right?
Not fully done. July 10th is the signing. I keep calling it signing date, the closing. But we've done all the inspections. We've got everything back. They agreed to our terms. They found a few termites, so they went ahead and treated it. And the hot water heater was a little leaky, and they replaced it.
Oh, nice. So you don't have to worry about it.
Everything else is like very tiny, like a cap on the outside vent or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
just the tiniest little stuff. So I'm very pleased that everything's going to be tight and move-in ready. Nothing is extraordinarily off-putting either in terms of aesthetics or functionality. So there's almost like nothing that you have to change. Every project we embark on will be pure like
Right.
because it's fun and it's what we want to do. Other than like I have to buy like a push mower and some things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
have to do that too.
it's just moving into a house, stuff you got to get like that. And I've been
Right.
making a list of like, I've got a baby proof. Like now that I'll have stairs, I need a baby gate.
Have you decided whether you'll put the spiral staircase on the inside or the outside? Will it be a interior or exterior?
I'm thinking like multiple doors so that half of it's on the outside and half's on the inside. But you have to
that's cool.
open doors as you go twice.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That makes it unique, visually appealing.
I'm very excited about moving. I'm relying though on my dad's. This will be the first. My dad. It's just kind of sentimental. It's Father's Day. Why don't I say it? But like my dad has been there for every move I've ever been on, and like he's getting older, and this will be the last move probably of like not of my life necessarily, but it's the most important move I'm saying that I'm making, and he's not going to be able to make it because he's going on a church trip. So that's very sad to me, like just for sentimental reasons.
Lame. He doesn't even care about his son.
I'm saying if you include all the little college dorm move and apartment moves, like that's like 5 or 6 right there.
Yeah, right.
And he's probably helped me move. Like
You should just not talk to him today.
I'm sad that he won't be there, and now I'm relying on like two students that. I don't know. Students are just more likely to cancel. I hope I mean, they're great kids, but you know what I mean? They wouldn't think about when you're 18 years old and you just graduated and like oh yeah, I can't make it, and like no, that's gonna screw me over big time. So I'm gonna be like thanking them beforehand and making sure and checking in with them. Yeah. Alex is gonna help me. A buddy of his and mine, Duke, is gonna help me. So that's like enough. That's
plenty. That's more than enough. You'll be fine.
That's 5 males that are very physically capable, and I'm gonna like rent the truck and have it all packed and ready. Like your moves are like exceedingly simple. Like mine have gotten a slightly more complicated, but still, I would say like
phonographs
simple
are kind of fragile and hard to transport. So yours are more complicated than mine are.
Just this decor, like I just have more like stuff. You're better at being a minimalist than me, basically. But I'm gonna make it happen. And real quick, I want your opinion on this. Like we've been. It just so happens that a person Danielle works with has been offering us some furniture. His parents, like he's like in his 50s, and his parents I think are moving into probably to retirement care. I don't actually know the whole story, but they're getting rid of all their stuff, and it's this wooden like very high quality, very grandparent looking, like you're probably even picturing the hardware on it is this sort of ornate gold, but like against this wood grainy. I just have to show you the pictures.
What piece?
Everything from a dining room table. Like there's like 8 pieces that are all, and it's probably worth a lot of money, but it's got curved legs, and I hate the pieces.
I wouldn't take anything I don't want.
Well, and I was trying to convince myself, how do I get to where I like it?
Unless you have no moral issues with taking it and immediately selling it.
Selling it. I have moral issues with that. I really do. But where I've convinced myself is we have an area for a formal dining room, but it's kind of when you enter the house. So I want to rethink. I was like, but what could this space be? And we're going to make it we're going to call it the parlor and make it very speakeasy-ish, and not do a table, because we're going to have a kitchen, like a dining table that's not the formal one, and that's just where we're going to eat. And we're not going to have big groups over of like 8 people at this formal dining table. Right. So I'm actually happy about this parlor thing, and all of a sudden that old grandpa and grandma furniture like can really fit with my like phonograph, and get a leather chair or something, and make and like do some dark dramatic stuff. And I'm like, okay, we've got a speakeasy kind of thing going on, and I like it.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, and like all that antique, because I was actually outgrowing this idea of like antique stuff that I love. I still love it, like an old phone and old stuff like that. But like honestly, that's more like college Daniel decor and not like permanent home, but now that I'll have like a little speakeasy room, like bring on the old phone, bring on, the old camera with the, all that stuff. I love it. I'm excited to like have a space for that. Plus, and this is getting too long for the podcast, but I'm excited. I bought a house.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a half bath downstairs that Danielle wanted to do. Like those are nice to do little projects. And so like do some sort of maximalism, busy, bold, and it would match the like just really ornate and like match that match the parlor vibe of like just old school stuff. Like we can replace the door with not the door itself, but like the door handle. Imagine just this crystal knob that's very old looking with like gold brass or whatever around it. It's very ornate. Just like, and when you walk in, I don't know, maybe there's a baby chandelier in the little bathroom. It's like funny, like almost funny, like very like quirky. So yeah, maybe.
Well, that'll be interesting. I look forward to getting to see the house.
And remind me afterward, Danielle has basically enthusiastically given the thumbs up about you coming. And
nice.
if you're willing to, while he's sleeping, she and I go, grab a drink or whatever. So
yeah,
but we could talk about that off air. But yes to that.
Cool. So. I don't want to talk about any of the interesting things that are happening in your life. It's been a long time. We've had a long time since our last episode, and you've been.
I know
very
it took
busy.
us 10 minutes of just me talking to you like
okay.
we're on the phone.
Totally fine.
I mean, it's okay though.
Totally fine. Yeah, totally fine. You've had a lot of interesting things going on, and maybe once you move, we can discuss the moving process and how you like the house and all that kind of thing. But for now, I have a really stupid new segment that I want to
I love
try.
stupid and new. Yeah.
It's not that stupid, but it is a new segment, and if you like it and if it goes well, maybe we'll repeat it. I'm not sure. We'll just have to try.
I'll judge everything by the name of it.
It is called Wisdom of the Ages.
Okay, I'm
That's
intrigued.
the name of the segment. And so the premise of the segment is very simple. Of course, in our culture, we've accumulated hundreds or thousands of sayings and aphorisms and colloquialisms, and they contain little nuggets of wisdom from the past.
Yeah.
But maybe some of them aren't that wise. Maybe some of them are very wise, and maybe some of them change with the times. And I just don't know. I don't know what's wise and what's not. So I'm coming to you, the wisest person that I know, to pass judgment on these sayings that we've all heard of.
Okay, so I'll just get really critical and really endorse right.
I want you to
lampoon.
unpack.
Yeah.
I want you to unpack when, like, maybe we can do a 0 to 5 scale or something, and a 5 is this is a golden nugget of wisdom that everyone should apply in almost every circumstance, and like this is going to lead you on the right path. And a 0 is like, this is anti-wisdom. You should never implement this. It's a horrible idea. And then somewhere in the middle, it's like, okay, maybe it's situationally valuable.
I like this on a 0 to 5 scale. I like putting it on a scale because any like bumper sticker slogan, and what I mean, like it's tight and it's short, is going to have limitations. But if it's generally powerful, I will, versus generally harmful. I like this. I think I understand. Let's do it.
Okay. The first one that I'm going to have you assess then is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. You've heard that saying,
yes.
right?
Yes. And I guess I should start by like defining what I think it's saying.
Yeah.
And it starts off the way this works, I think, is keep your friends close is a very agreeable statement, and keep your enemies closer, that's the turn, and that's the little bit of, whoa, really? And then when you think about it, it's like your enemies can cause you pain and harm, and that's a scary thing. And by keeping them closer, I think it's just metaphorically keeping your eye on them and understanding them is important. Because they are more likely to harm you than, say, your friends. That's the general idea. And so being aware of them is, and the harm they could bring you is, well, I guess more important to your safety than, keeping your friends close. However, now I'll get critical. Like, I think that's a fair shake on what that means, right?
Yes, totally.
Like,
Yeah, I agree.
So, but I think if you actually mean, if it's a reminder to, hey, keep your eye on those who will harm you, good. That is good wisdom. But saying keep them closer, meaning you're investing more of your mental energy and your time and your commitment to community, if you're putting more of your energy into the negative, I would actually say that's unwise. You're going to drive yourself crazy paying attention to the political enemy and the whatever enemy, insert, friend enemy or personal enemy. Or I think investing I'll just use that as the biggest term possible, investing yourself into the negative around you and potential harm is necessary in one sense, and in the other sense, if you're to keep it closer to you than the good in your life, that's a recipe for disaster. So I think if you're going to take it almost literally, I would say I would want to refine it to something like keep your friends close, but don't forget your enemies, or so, like also be aware of this is not as pithy, I suppose. But to keep them actually closer and more aware of them is not necessary. Being aware of them, yes, but closer, it's the ER. It's that little ending that's like, I think it's just to be provocative and make you think.
Yeah,
and
I
so,
think so.
in that sense, I think it's very wise. But if I'm going to get literal about it, like, no, do not invest yourself more into the negative out there than into the positive. I think we should emphasize the good stuff more.
So how would you rate it then? 0 or 5?
Well, it depends. I don't want to be if I'm being, the semantics matter in a short. Like, I have to take it as it is. It says keep them closer, and I think it means it in that little pithy, punchy thing. Is like, you got to keep them closer than your friends. And so in that sense, that's bad advice. So if I'm going to take it that way, I'm going to say that's actually potentially dangerous. So I'm down to like a 1.5. But if I'm going to take it as what I think the spirit of it is like, hey, don't forget enemies can harm you and you can't just forget about them. Then I'm at like, that's almost always true. Consider it often. And we're at like a 4.5. So okay. Do you see that what I'm struggling with is like, how sure. literal should I take it? What are your thoughts?
My sense is that, we don't have to be too semantically strict. When these sayings are passed down from antiquity, George Washington, I think, came up with this one or something like that. We're meant to take the reason why it's able to get passed down is because it's pithy and it's memorable and maybe a little provocative.
Right. So I shouldn't jump on the ER and go like, right. That's maybe going on.
My assessment. Fair. My assessment of this is the same as yours. Keep your friends close goes without saying. That's your friends are almost by definition close. And your enemy's closer, that's the turn, and that makes you think, wait a second, why would I do that? Oh, it means this is essentially telling me to carefully watch my enemies.
Yeah, that's and all. Understand them, and if that's it, and that's full of, then I'm at like that's almost always true. So I guess nothing's holding me back from going 5. It isn't. There's something about the profundity that I'm trying to work in to prevent it from being a 5. It's not mind-blowing for me. That's why I was going to go 4.5. But it's almost always applicable. It's a good reminder. So I'm at a 4.5.
Well, let me tell you my sense of this. I tend to agree with all of your points. But if I was going to try to play devil's advocate, I would say that following this piece of wisdom automatically puts you in the mindset of friends and enemies. And I don't know that breaking down the world in that way is the most constructive way to live. Now, granted, there are people out there who want to harm you, and it's certainly possible for people to develop enemies. But I don't know how common that is. Personally, it's not common. I don't know that I have any enemies. Not personal enemies. Like, I'm sure there are people for ideological or national bigger reasons bigger than me. They don't care about Bennett. They care about the fact that some trait that I have, and that might be considered an enemy. But I don't have any personal enemies. And if I were to start thinking about the world in that way, that might not be beneficial for my well-being.
I can think of a few people in my life that do think in terms of you're either for me or against me, and they are miserable people. And
Yeah.
like, so you saying that is actually illuminating that, like, and then when I think about it, I don't have enemies. Do I even have? Let's just say there are people in my life that are at odds with like their aspirational goals and how they travel through the world and treat other humans are like stuff that I do not like. I would rather distance myself from them. But if I think I'd be making a mistake in going in and going, they're my enemy.
Right.
Like there's a personal investment in that. There's a villainy. There's a
Yeah,
framing
right.
that I think is inaccurate. Like it's enticing because this narrative of heroes and villains and like that's important. But man, I think it's simplified, and like I would start putting energy into that person that I don't need to, when really I'm just like, I don't operate like them. I wouldn't treat my friends and colleagues or whatever similarly, and I'm wary of their motivations, and that's all healthy. But you're right, like friends and enemies as a dichotomy, like it's so much, and it also is like, I think that dichotomy has prevented me from having just some good friends. I used to be searching for my like best friends outside of my childhood friends. Who's going to be my next Bennett, but like closer to home to me. And then when someone doesn't meet that criteria, I'm like, oh, and I don't nurture the friendship because it's not going to be as deep or something like that. And like that's a mistake. Why can't they just be someone you grab a drink with on a Friday once a month? Why can't people just be someone you have lunch with at work and like you never hang out with outside of school? Like that's healthy, and so I don't even need like I don't need everyone to be my best friend that I can confide in and all of that. There's just different levels of intimacy and like, yeah, I don't need it to be like best friends or worst enemies kind of thing. So I'm with you.
One last thought on this one. There may be some circumstances where where there is more wisdom in this. You could imagine if you were in some cutthroat business position or political position or whatever, where people are that friends and enemies are more defined roles, that this would be more helpful advice. But even so, one thing that concerns me is that it encourages manipulation, deception. You're almost putting on a facade to keep your enemies closer in a way, and I just don't like that way of being.
Ethically, it's gray to say fool. You're saying it implies fool your enemies in some ways,
right.
so that you can check in on them better.
Right, and maybe that's necessary in those circumstances. It's just not something that I like. I would not enjoy a life like that. That doesn't take away necessarily from the wisdom of the phrase, but I think there's a lot of danger in there. So I think if I were to rate it, I would give it probably a 3, right in the middle. Like, in some circumstantially useful, and it is kind of a caution against naivete, but there's also some risks involved with this one.
You've convinced me to come down to a 4. I'm still a whole point above you, in which I think it's just generally applicable, but
Totally fair.
But not. Yeah, because you don't want to get too. We talked about not getting into semantics too much, and it doesn't insist that you look at it as like friends and foes. It doesn't insist that, or it doesn't insist manipulation either. But
No.
often the manipulation. Someone will go, I'm picturing like you're watching a movie and then the innocent, naive person goes, why are you being nice to that person who we know we're enemies with? And then they use this phrase as a sort of just shorthand justification for the manipulation. And that is how it's commonly used. And that is morally gray. So yeah.
All right, a new phrase, new wisdom
Okay.
of the ages. Opposites attract.
Yeah, opposites attract. Okay. This seems like a well, first of all, to define it, like people who are like don't have the same necessarily interests or values or outlooks or personalities or whatever. I gotta sneeze. Hold on. It went away now that I got all like into my head. Okay. They attract. So, to give it its due diligence and its to shape like there. I believe in like yin and yang and order and chaos and the differences, say, between men and women that can be like not like adversarial but compatible, and that like. Sure. If you do believe in the idea of like what does it mean to like marriage is becoming one, and it's nice to think if you have the same strengths and the same weaknesses, then becoming one, you don't actually extend yourself that much. So there is some giving it its fair shake, and the opposites attract. There's something like the masculine and the feminine coming together and becoming one, and you extend further, and you help each other through your moments of weakness, and like that's nice, and there's something complete about that. However, I think generally it's used to sort of justify if someone has a hard time saying, well, why are you with this person? You're so different. They'll just be like, I don't know, opposites attract sometimes. I think it works in select things. Like I can see the introvert and the extrovert, like the introvert might even appreciate being pushed a bit. And if the extrovert is thoughtful too, might also appreciate being pushed to be okay with the quiet or not needing these social affirmations or whatever. Because I think both the introvert and the extrovert need to challenge themselves to say, well, am I introverted or am I being like shy, but I'm really not as socially fulfilled as I should be? Versus the extrovert saying like, well, why am I depending on like fulfillment from like an outside source to get my charge or whatever? I think challenging each other in those ways is good. But opposites attract it's two words, and it's too big of a blanket statement, because I think if you are morally at odds and you just kind of shrug your shoulders, I think you're in a little bit of a dangerous territory. Because I think that opposites are often incompatible. Like that's actually the nature of being in opposition. That's what the word means.
Right.
And I think that the phrase could be harmful if you use it. I guess any phrase can be harmful if you use it as a shortcut to quit thinking. You just say it, you announce it, and we're supposed to go, oh, that's an aphorism, or oh, that's like, yeah, that's a saying, so therefore it has validity. Like the whole point of this segment is to challenge that and to say like, I don't think you could just say opposites attract as a reason for why you're attracted. Like I think. Yeah, so I think that and that's how it's actually used, right? Like, why do you like to go hiking and be outdoorsy? This person hates the outdoors. You're of this political persuasion. They're the opposite end. Like, y'all have opposite lives. What is it? And you go, oh, opposites attract, and then it's a shortcut to not think about it, and that's dangerous. Yeah. So I actually don't think it's particularly useful. I'm trying to think of when it would ever be useful, because it's fine if all those things, if you really unpacked why, well, actually, they're making me sit down and read a book and be still, and like that actually challenges me in a good, powerful way. And if you had reasons, then like it's okay. But if you just use that term as a shortcut to quit thinking, which it almost always is, then I think it's bad. Yeah.
I think there's a question as to whether this is a descriptive or a prescriptive bit of wisdom. And to me, this one seems a little bit more descriptive, right? It's an observation that sometimes, maybe paradoxically, people who differ significantly tend to end up together or, get along or find success, not necessarily in a relationship, but often, I think most often this is talking about relationships. And so it's a little less useful in my eyes because it's descriptive, but I think if I had to be the most charitable, give the most charitable read of this that I could, it would be that it's kind of telling you not to rule someone out simply because they're different in some way, true. Right?
Yeah.
It's saying that don't think that you know exactly what you want, because you might be surprised that someone outside of your rigidly defined desires might actually be better than you thought. I think that's kind of the
That's
wisdom that it's
helpful.
trying to convey.
It's funny you say that. Well, go ahead.
I mean, I agree with your criticism that it's only 2 words, and yeah, of course, pithy sayings. That's what makes it through time. I think this one came from Moses, so it never would have made it that far without being pithy. But and so it's not very instructive in that way. But if I were to try to give it the most charitable read, that would be what it is. But the fact that it's descriptive does take away some of the power from it, I think.
One angle too is not just a caution to say you think you know someone when you don't, but also I know I'm guilty of this. I have a very specific idea of what I think a healthy relationship looks like. Some of that I'm willing to, and I'm not willing to budge on much of that for me and my partner, right? Mm-hmm. But like for instance, intimacy. I require a deep level of intimacy, and I don't want to go into philosophically what that means, but let's just say I'm there. So when I see partners that don't seem to be that intimate, I think that's not good. And I've come to believe actually that it wouldn't be good for me, but it is entirely feasible that a partnership that works for like a mutual betterment, whether it's like stability financially, like whatever, there's a lot of different reasons it might just work, and they don't, and maybe they're not wired the same way where they need all this philosophical harmony, and like they can kind of just sit at dinner every night and be like, and talk about like surface level stuff, and like that's just kind of who they are, so that maybe even they're incapable of achieving the sort of intimacy that I'm trying to describe. And so if it's a caution, like for me as an outsider to look at couples and go, they don't seem like they're compatible. Mm-hmm. Like it can be a cautionary tale for me to, like, a helpful shortcut, if you will, to say like, well, almost like a to each their own, whatever that means. That might be in your list. Sorry if it is, but opposites attract. Like this works some ways, in ways that I can't fully understand, and I who am I to even understand the intricacies of their relationship there anyway? Like I don't know what their alone time is like. So if it's like helpful for me from reserve, like I don't need to judge their relationship. It's not particularly fruitful for me to like really judge their relationship. And if it's working and they seem like opposites to me, like whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's just another little angle on it.
So what would you rate this one?
I'm still pretty low, below. If 2.5 is the like average, then I'm like at like opposites attract. Like the descriptive nature of it, you're right. It doesn't help like me. I'm at like a 2 though. It's not that harmful. You talked me out of the harmfulness of it. So
right, yeah. I think I'm on the same page. 2. I think I would give it a 2. It's just not that useful. It's not harmful exactly, but it's just whatever. It's just a saying. Moses, maybe he could have done a little better.
Come on, Moses.
All right, last one that we're going to do this time. We'll just keep it to 3, I think. Don't judge a book by its cover. I know you like books, so I figured this one would be... You probably really have a good read on this one.
Maybe. Let's see. I think what it means is things appear a certain way, and we can't get too... that would actually apply to the relationships. If I'm confused by a relationship of a couple and I'm like, they don't seem to fit, well, you can't judge a book by its cover. Like, if they don't seem compatible physically or something, I think we all know what that means. It's just like, don't look at the surface of things and make deeper assumptions about it. And I think my knee jerk, I'll unpack this in a second, is that it's very wise. And the reason is because I think I'm hardwired to make sense of the world quickly for a lot of reasons. All human beings are. We have to navigate the world and like construct like, how dangerous is this? That's your baseline, like primitive, like am I safe? So, and then I get into pattern recognition that helps me make shortcuts. And then in those shortcuts, they're super useful and necessary to navigate life and generally correct. But you get into those shortcuts eliminate the ability to, or they make you stop short of diving deeper. And so I might bypass what could be a great friendship. I might bypass what could be. And on its surface, I'm like looking to find a good book to read, and the color scheme and marketing appeals to me in this book, but they've really just that's the irony of that is like artists and marketing takes control over the books, and the author actually has little say in what the covers look like anymore. Like there's a discrepancy, and so. I can't just say, oh, I like this marketing, therefore I'll like the content of a book. And I think that just can easily apply to other things. I tour a school for Cosmo, and people smile at me on the surface, and like it seems like a pleasant day, but they really want. I think this especially goes into like anything consumption based or like purchasing, like. Don't be bamboozled by the marketing, but we all market ourselves too. Like we're on our best behaviors on a first date and stuff like that too, or how you dress. We're trying to suggest it says something deeper about us, so our inclination is to believe it does, but it doesn't necessarily. We have to see past the facade, and I mean the facade has this negative connotation, but I just mean this surface like level that we decide to project. So generally speaking, I think it's pretty wise to reserve those shortcut judgments. I mean, if something's saying, "Hey, my safety's in jeopardy," I'd say better to be wrong and alive and safe, though. So I don't say negate it always your quick judgments, and you should trust some of those quick judgments, but then to press pause on them too. And so, don't judge a book by its cover. That's one, like, I would even say I probably have folded into my life. I don't use the term that much because it's overused to the point of all of these are kind of cliches, and I think that's your point, is that, like, but I have internalized that one and try to, like, operate by it, meaning I think we're at, like, I think I'm at a 4.5 again. Yeah, I want to hear your take.
This might surprise you, maybe it doesn't. I think this is anti-wisdom. I think this is a 1.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is provocative, but you should judge books by their cover. I mean, people tell you who they are all the time, and you gave the example of marketing and people trying to trick you, and there's some truth in that. If you go into a Barnes and Noble and pick up a random book and look at it, but the thing is. Almost certainly greater than 99% of the books you pick up, what you read on the back is going to describe what's inside the book to a certain degree. The picture on the cover is going to be relevant to what's inside the book. If it's a recipe book and it has a nice picture of some turkey on a plate, like, you're probably going to find that recipe in the book. Like, it's going to be in there.
Fair.
The cover tells you about what's in the book. Now, maybe... what the saying is trying to get out there is that, oh yeah, maybe this book has really been bashed around, and the dust jacket is crumpled and it's got a smear on it, but the story inside can still be very valuable. That's what the saying is trying to convey.
Yeah, and like if a kid doesn't want to watch a movie in black and white, but you're like, trust me, this is a classic. This is Miracle on 31st Street or whatever that.
Right. That's what the saying is trying to convey, and I agree that cases like that exist, and you should always be mindful and not take your snap judgment as gospel. You should always leave a little wiggle room to be wrong, to be surprised. However, we're talking about statistics and probability here. We're talking about heuristics and the way to most efficiently get through life, and almost all the time, the cover is going to be a relatively good heuristic for what's inside the book. And now taking this to the more, the less literal interpretation, people, applying this to people and how they behave, the people tell you who they are. People show you what's on the inside based on their actions and their words and the way they present themselves. Like, we've talked before about the lamentable state of a lot of people and how they wear their mental illnesses on their sleeves, so to speak. They destroy their appearance. They chop up their hair in crazy ways and punch holes in their faces, and they'll cut, or they'll behave in a really insane way on social media or even in the real world. They're telling you who they are, and you should judge people based on the actions that they're taking. They're doing the thing, and you would be silly, you would be naive, and in fact taking an inordinate risk to disregard the signals that people are showing you. It would be like, don't judge a snake by its rattle. Like, that would be terrible advice. If the snake is rattling, then you should leave, because
it's probably a rattlesnake.
It might be a rattlesnake, right? Yeah. Now, again, I want to say that I'm not advocating for total adherence to stereotypes or anything like that. I'm just saying that stereotypes are usually right, and you should be wary, be willing to when you're in a situation, you can make your heuristic, your snap judgment or whatever, and then be willing to have that be wrong, with some further examination. But I think if you were to live by don't judge a book by its cover, you would be more likely to be harmed than the reverse.
It would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's a caution to withhold judgment, those snap judgments. But if you really went through life not making snap judgments, it's like it would be an unwieldy way to live. It'd be disorienting. You'd be going, well, I have no idea if this what like homeless person approaching me quickly and with a look in his eye. Right, maybe exactly. He just wants to read me a story. It's
right,
like,
good. That's a great example, right? Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the people who internalize and live by this donate to every homeless person, even the guy who's at the same corner for 3 years. Like, every time they roll down the window and give him a few bucks.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But no one. No one lives by this 100%, no one contradicts it 100%. Like, there is a middle ground. My sense is just that I'm just a little less in favor of this.
I guess the reason it exists and persists as a piece of collective wisdom is that we do, and what you're describing is, we do make the judgments, and we do that so often that this is saying, hey, this is a reminder of try to press pause on that sometimes. And in order to be a pithy piece of wisdom, it just says, don't do this. And like, but like, if you didn't do this, come on.
Well, another reason, I think we've had a whole episode, and I tried to convince you that we are living in an abundant, our society has an overabundance of empathy. And, I tried to dig into the difference between empathy and sympathy. I think there might have been a time in the past, maybe when this was coined by Napoleon, who came up with this phrase, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that was a time in which people were living like robots, they were making their snap decisions, and there were amazing people who didn't get their due because they were judged quickly. But in today's day and age, I think we're on the other end of that spectrum, and now we're trying to be so compassionate, open-minded, empathetic, that we're actually allowing harm to propagate. And I had a whole thesis about empathy along those lines.
This might not be. I mean, I came up with this on the spot, so forgive me if this is weak. But I'm going to say a phrase like, smiles don't mean you're happy. Now imagine a depression awareness campaign that tried, and that's what they hashtag smiles don't mean you're happy.
Yeah.
And it's provocative precisely because like, smile, what do you do when you're happy? You smile, you light up, and we see pictures of happy people, and that they're smiling or grinning or beaming with. How do you beam with joy? Like, there's some upward motion of the lips and each end, and saying smiles don't mean you're happy, like, that's a BS phrase. Honestly, it's actually like, that's not a good piece of truth, and I don't know. I think it might be analogous. Like it's
Yeah,
just
similar.
that saying it is just like like imagine I'm trying to teach Cosmo how to live and like, are you happy? And when I do this, I actually smile and I like exaggerate like by pointing to the corners of my like, or are you sad or whatever? And you
Yeah.
do the frown. It would be dumb. It would be bad parenting to try and say, hey, smiles don't mean you're happy. Like,
Yeah.
and all of these other things. It's like later I can say just because someone's smiling, like if he had a friend who was depressed, but he has all these pictures of him smiling and I'm trying to describe depression, then there's if he's ready for that, assuming like maybe he's 12 or 13 and he's like, I could say just because people smiled, it doesn't automatically mean they're happy. It generally does, but people can fake it. But that's like, we don't need to talk about the counter examples as the truth.
Yes.
And that's what
Well,
I think you're cautioning against.
That's exactly what I'm cautioning against. We've lived through the last decade or so has been a very subversion heavy decade, right? In all of our entertainment, media, even the ideas that we propagate.
Trying to
very
convince us
heavy.
like the villain isn't always the villain.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
okay, well,
and why has our entertainment culture gone in that direction? It's really just out of boredom. Like this is the kind of when you live a life of luxury and you have entertainment at your fingertips and everyone is just throwing entertainment at you. You want novelty and
the hero gets boring. Let's focus on the anti-hero.
Right, the anti-hero gets you excited. It's something different. That novelty response is really what grabs your attention and holds it. And yeah, there's something to that, but there's a deeper truth. You know, the hero's journey, all of those underlying values, all of that stuff is stronger than the temporary novelty response. All that to say that we've latched on to these phrases that are really subversive phrases. You know, the one that you came up with is good. Smiles don't mean you're happy. That I could absolutely imagine that being said today, and everyone nods and goes, "Yeah, right, yeah, But it's not good advice because in 99% of cases, smiles do mean you're happy. That 1% isn't. That's not the way you should live. In the same way that, you know, in a story, a story about a hero who has good values and carries out some noble quest, and interacts and defeats the evil villain or whatever. Yeah, is that a story we've heard 1,000 times? Yes, but those values are more valid than, you know, Game of Thrones, where every character sucks and everyone dies without meaning. You know?
Yeah, totally. And we don't need to like, oh, but the villain actually has a sob story. Did you know that they were abused and that they meant to do well, but then, you know, oppression happened and that they were forced? Like that's just sort of, that's where we emphasize all our storytelling today. And I think it's confusing for kids who are growing up, just who have not been bored by the hero's journey or like, you know, the classic good, like to understand that.
Here's another point. Like, I think that, you know, subversion isn't all bad. Like I said, it's entertaining. And, you know, it's kind of, subversion is almost the root of humor in a way, like twisting your expectations around a little bit. But there is a path of maturity. You know, when you're a kid, subversion is totally inappropriate. Like, you want to tell those foundational stories that are easy to follow, easy to understand, and that are instructive. Now, adolescence might be where you start to toy with some of the subversion and everything. But again, another topic we've talked about before is in our current culture, adolescence extends until you're probably 28 years old. You know, like we have this extended adolescence where you don't actually become an adult until much later for various reasons. You know, people are living with their parents for much longer. You know, kids aren't getting their driver's licenses and going out and being independent as early. People are living more online, which is kind of a frozen time where your physical age doesn't matter and you can just languish in this mental like stasis. And so like adolescence takes much, much longer. And so we're stewing in this milieu where subversion is like, it grabs our attention and holds it. And I think we're kind of like we're ingesting a lot of that subversion, and it takes years to grow out of that and start to appreciate, again, when you're mature again, you start to appreciate those foundational stories, and you can see, a more well-rounded picture of what the wisdom in those
this
are.
kind of brings me full circle back to like my house buying for a second, is that if you would have told me like this house is in sort of a cookie cutter neighborhood, and it's quiet suburbia, and it's a yawn, in that terms. It's quiet, it's beautiful, it's well manicured, it's safe, and as teenage me like craved like a little bit of rebellion and chaos, and this is so orderly. And now I recognize the wisdom of order and how preciously fragile and preciously constructed it is. Like, it takes such hard work to have an orderly existence that functions. And I think it's like a quiet miracle, not just something to kind of and in fact, if you're doing it right, you raise a teenager who kind of scoffs and is able to think about subversion because they've lived in this orderly world. So then when they're playing with subversion, it's meaningful. And then I feel like I've come full circle to wanting, like, it's not boring to me. It's achieved through hard work and dedication so that I can provide an environment for my kid or for myself to think about chaos and fold chaos in a way that, or absorb the chaos I don't want because it's going to happen, and fold in chaos I do want, some like spice to life. But It should all be in the context of this order that is not easily achieved. And I do see it as miraculous that we've done something. And that's why I think that's the great, I'll even just say conservative wisdom that's like wants to maintain order, and I don't want to throw it all out. I think that's the difficult thing to achieve. And it's, so I feel like I've gone on this great path of life of like being raised in order, super intrigued in adolescence by chaos and all of this, and I'm kind of returning to order in a good way.
Right.
So
there's another analogy that comes to mind. Like, we've talked about writing a lot. You talked about writing with your classes and everything, and in high school or middle school, the 5-paragraph essay is just prescribed structure. Put your thesis at the end of the first paragraph, and then you have 3 body paragraphs that elucidate your points, and then a conclusion. It's just very structured and by the book, and you can churn out those 5-paragraph essays and have very okay information conveyal,
and
and
clearly,
you're good.
and yep.
But the real masters, the real writers who learn the lesson are able to bend those rules a little bit and play with the structure, and subvert, if you will, the expectations of the reader, and that's better for the piece. That's better for the piece of writing ultimately. Right. And that's how I think that our lives should be. We should nail the 5-paragraph essay of life, right? Like, we should get our lives in order. We should understand the mechanics that we're working with, and then once you're in a place of maturity, once you're most of the way through adolescence, right, or you're on the other end of adolescence, then you can start folding in the chaos a little bit, as you say. You can start bending the rules, playing with things, putting a speakeasy instead of a formal dining room. Like, you can do those things that add a little bit of spice, like you say, and because you're doing it in a thoughtful way. You're not making your whole house a speakeasy. You're not putting curved legs grandpa furniture in every room of your house that you hate. And instead you say, well, you know what? Having furniture that you hate is a good thing because it makes me, some stupid modern day wisdom about like living in ugly environments is actually good. Like, that's not what you're doing.
Ugly
Instead,
core. It's an aesthetic called ugly core.
I think, after spending some time on dating apps, I think ugly core is a good description of that is the time we live in. But that would be the thing. You see what I'm saying? Like
I do.
you're able to
I'm
tastefully
breaking
play.
the rules thoughtfully because I've spent time understanding.
Right. That's
my
why,
environment.
like,
Yeah.
I just steal a little from the grocery store every now and then. You know?
A little theft never hurt anybody.
Right. You know, every now and then I'll drive by the playground and yell curse words out my window.
Just the right amount of chaos.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I had a whole other topic that I was going to do, but we've pretty much covered.
I think this
full,
is great.
Full
the
podcast.
timing was great. And
A full podcast with Wisdom of the Ages. So we'll save the other topic for next time. And what did you think of Wisdom of the Ages? Do you think it's a worthwhile segment to continue with other?
I really
other...
liked it.
I like it too.
I figured you'd somehow. It makes me want to go back. I need to end this by reevaluating. Don't judge a book by its cover. Did you convince me that it's? I think you have convinced me that is something I would not want to introduce to, say, Cosmo. So that's really the truth is in the pudding, as you would say. But like okay, would I take this bit of wisdom and as Cosmo is sense making, as he is making sense of the world, and do I want him to fold that in early on? Like I want up is up, down is down. I want like just very
don't talk to strangers.
Yeah,
like
yeah. I think
listen, you could easily imagine a modern day family. Well, modern day family wouldn't be a family. It would be some other weird conglomeration of people. But let's imagine a modern family, and they have their 2-year-old or whatever, and don't talk to strangers would be anti-wisdom for them, because you can't judge the stranger. You don't know what their life has been like. He might have a creepy van that says free candy on it just because he's on hard times, and this is the only way he's got to make a few bucks.
Maybe he does have some free candy,
Yeah, maybe so. Don't judge a book by its cover, Don't judge the male pattern baldness guy with the mustache and dark sunglasses sitting on the playground bench, you never know. See, that's anti-wisdom. And so when children are young, don't judge a book by a cover is terrible advice.
Yes, it's terrible. Again, we're trying to teach them some basic stuff. Yeah.
As they understand the basics, and maybe they're stuck in that boring 5-paragraph essay stage where they're just churning out slop that, you fall asleep before you reach paragraph 5. Like they got the mechanics, but they're now boring. Now you can add some of that spice in and say, well, you know what? Don't judge a book by its cover. Like, there may be things outside of the structure that we've taught you around the edges, marginal cases, very rarely, that you need to pay a little bit more closer attention to.
Yeah. It makes me think, this is too broad of a topic, but when kids start being mean to one another, one of the theories that I'm attracted to is they are understanding what is normal in society, and the reason bullying tends to occur. I mean, there's obviously I've been bullied by my parents, so I'm going to punch down kind of thing. But there's also this kid is not operating within what we've defined as normal, and so we're going to push them outside the circle further and say you don't belong, or we're saying that behavior is inadequate, so we're bullying you in order to sort of bring you back in, to stop that behavior and say that's not good and to bring you back in. It's a way of social norming. And so bullying is in that context very natural, but also something to be discouraged. There's better ways to show kindness and get what you want. That behavior is not okay. So I'm curious about when. I don't know this, but when it happens pretty early though. I think by the time kids are 5, they're not being kind to one another, and different than just scratching at each other or biting when they're 2 or 3 or 4. But when they are socially saying you're a loser and stuff like that, they are they're saying be better at this sport or this game, or you don't know how to play, or you need to either you don't belong here or you should learn and catch up. And so I'm thinking about don't judge a book by its cover being useful when it's when I'm trying to say don't be mean to that kid who's maybe they're actually like fun. They have some things in common with you, and I don't know. Just
could be.
thoughts or like,
Maybe.
or like maybe it is stay away from that loser kid. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there
It's
are
like
ways
struggling to understand bullying,
Right.
and how to best handle it. But anyway, it's a whole nother discussion, I think.
I think there are probably ways to get that message across to a young kid aside from don't judge a book by its cover. Because like, do you remember when we were in elementary school? There was we had a classmate named Jace. Do you remember him?
Yes. And he was actually like, yeah, he was really misbehaving, like ways that
Right.
were outside the norm of our community. And you could tell the teachers were frustrated. We were almost scared to hang out with him because he was doing inappropriate things. He was scary in PE changing room. Like he's going to like start like hitting at people or whatever. Like, yes, I remember him well, actually.
And our parents' advice to us, they said, don't judge a book by its cover, try to get closer and understand Jace.
Yeah, no.
That
He was like
stay.
it was a stay away.
Right?
It was a stay away. We knew to stay away too.
Right.
Like, this guy's getting us in trouble. Like,
Right. It was very clear. And so like, there are times when it is that kid is a loser, stay away. Like this is a dangerous person to become closer to. So
yes.
I think there's probably a way to convey like, don't be mean to other kids unless they're really weird, like. Or
Well, he was a powerful force, and you
Right.
would want your kid to stay away. Then there's the more like delicate child who's just like, and So anyway,
I think maybe the lesson is you don't want to teach your kid to be mean, really in any circumstances. Like it's not useful to be mean,
but
maybe
staying away,
staying away, or being being assertive is more positive. Being mean. It's hard to convey those nuanced ideas to a kid.
I'm going to share this final story. This would be a good thing to close on. Jace. There was we were. I think he left in third grade, maybe, but maybe second. So we were in one of those grades. We're doing like music time, and they were like, "Does anyone know the song Yankee Doodle Went to Town?" And I'll tell you before, like when he sang, he raised his hand and sang it, and it was inappropriate. And the reaction of the teachers, I didn't understand why it was inappropriate, but I knew based on their reaction, they froze, didn't know what to do, and they were like, "That's inappropriate," and they kind of like separated him. And I went home and repeated it to my parents because I just didn't quite get it. But this is what he raised his hand and he proudly said, "Yankee Doodle went to town, riding on his mother. Every time he hit a bump, he had a baby brother." And it made no sense to like my second grade worldview. Why is that bad? Like, I don't even. And it just shocked them. And that's the kind of kid he was. I think his home life was clearly the nightmare, but like. I think they got him out of the school. I think they he just didn't come back because it was just so. And we didn't really talk about him much, but he was scary to be around. I just remember that. Just like fear was my primary emotion around him. Like, oh no.
I didn't have much experience with him. I wonder where he is today.
I remember his last name. I won't say it
I
here,
do too,
but
I wasn't going to dox him on the Third Space podcast. Yeah, we have a
bet he's
lot
not
of people.
doing well.
We have
He'd
a
be like
lot
one
of
of the
people
few
out there.
He's not.
Who would go after him?
Yeah. He's the kind that like I'm going to go ahead and say someone on that path that early, they're unlikely to go in a different direction, sadly.
Yeah, sure.
Like he'd be the kind who's not alive, like seriously.
I think good chance he's in prison and has like gang tattoos and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll
look him up after this.
Right. My two memorable classmates from that era were Jace and Derek. You remember Derek?
Yes, and I'm pretty sure he actually did die. We need to look that up before I just say that.
Okay.
But it was like a car wreck. It was something different. But yes, he was
weird.
also very like stay away, but kind of for different reasons. I don't fully remember, but like, really odd parents too, and like
right.
Okay,
that's enough.
All right, man.
Over.